So NPAN did some research. It was almost 10 years ago now. And we collected data from all over the country. And it was roughly to open up a small inspected facility of like 5,000 square feet, you needed about 1,200 beef or beef equivalent a year to break even, right? That's not to make a profit, just bare bones.
Hello, me folks. Welcome back to the MeatsPad podcast. Today, I'm honored to be finally in person with one of our guests. And for some of you that don't know, Rebecca Thistlethwaite. I always get it wrong, but now I think I got it right. She was one of the first persons who trusted this podcast when I first started. Thank you for everything, and welcome. I think we have a good breakdown of questions for you, and this is your podcast. Welcome to MeatsPad.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here in person and meet you in person finally.
Is this your first or second AMP?
I've never been to AMP before.
Okay, this is your first.
Yeah.
What's your first impression?
It's huge. Great turnout. I love the trade show floor. Lots of great conversations with people, and it's just fun to shake hands with people I've only interacted with by email or Zoom sessions. So just super happy to be here.
And I apologize because I didn't mention. So we're still, we recorded some sessions. We partnered with the American Association of Meat Processors here on the 83rd edition. So Rebecca is the director of the Niche Meat Processor Assistance Network, NMPAN.
Yep.
And I have the privilege to work as an advisor for the association. Mm-hmm. But please tell us some of your role and what NMPAN is.
Yeah, so NMPAN started in 2008, and believe it or not, actually started here in Iowa at Iowa State University by a grad student in the meat science program named Arian. And he partnered with this other grad student at Oregon State, Lauren Gwynn, and they realized that for all the great work that Extension does, especially for farmers and ranchers, they really didn't have any program that was targeted to meat processors, and specifically small-scale meat processors, which makes up the bulk of meat processors in America. I think 93% of meat processors in the U.S. are considered small or very small. The large packers have their own trade associations and probably have their own in-house R&D and training, but there really wasn't anything to provide research and education for the smaller processors. Yeah. So that's how we got started 14 years ago. I started with NMPAN 6 years ago as the program manager, just developing content and curriculum for processors, and then took over 3 years ago as a director. And I'm super happy that we're getting additional funding to expand our team, and now I actually have a program manager who's helping me develop content. But we are completely responsive to the needs of meat processors. So we survey them every year in January. We say, what do you want to learn about this year? And then we spend the year developing content for them. So whether that's web pages or case studies or webinars, short courses, videos, podcasts, supporting podcasts, whatever format and education they want is what we provide. And then more recently, in the last couple of years during the pandemic, we've provided a ton more one-on-one technical assistance and consulting for startups and new meat processors, because there's a lot of new entrants into the marketplace. So we provide a lot of one-on-one advice directly to processors.
So I know I get to interact a lot with small mid-sized meat processors, and in fact at Ultrasound Academy we host up to, ranging from 18 to 22 processors, and we get a lot of questions. But I know you get more questions on a daily basis, and I know you have created a consulting team for those questions. Let's talk about some of the common questions that you get on a daily basis from meat processors, and I think we can facilitate a conversation and maybe answer or the common questions that they may have for, regarding meat processing, building, expanding, and that type of thing. So.
Yeah. Well, we get so many of the same questions that on our website, we have a beginner's guide to meat processing. So we go over the very basics, like what are the regulations, what are the economics. And then last year, I got funding from USDA to produce this little document called So You Want to Start a Meat Plant. And it really just goes over all those basic questions. So when people call me, especially newbies and beginners, I tend to funnel them first towards those resources so I don't have to answer the same question over and over again. And then I say, read these documents. If you still have questions, come back to me, book a half an hour call with me for free, or one of my consultants that I have on the team now. And now I've put together a team of, I think there's 11 of us that take questions in kind of different subject areas, Since I started that consulting team in March, we've served 84 clients, vast majority of them being startups, but some of them are existing operators who want to expand or upgrade equipment or potentially apply for federal grants. But, the most common startup questions that I get are usually from cattle producers or other producers who, have a couple hundred head, are having difficulty getting on the schedule anywhere, complaining about having to wait 6-12 months to get on the schedule. And they're frustrated, and they have determined that they need to take matters into their own hands and open up their own facility. And so they call me saying, is this a good idea? What do I need to know? What are the pros and cons? What kind of financing do I need to have to consider opening a plant? Just all the nuts and bolts of opening a new facility. And so, I either take those questions directly or I farm it out to one of my consultants. And now that I have a team of us, I kind of can send them to the right person. You're on the team. If someone comes in and is a Spanish speaker, I can send them to you. I have a facilities person. I have a couple grant writers on the team now. So luckily now I don't have to take all the questions because that's how it used to be for the last 5 years. And but yeah, that's the most common one is what do I need to know to get started?
And you mentioned before recording a little bit of financing. Could you elaborate more on that and some of the amount of animals to break even? Even considering starting a new establishment, what do you have to take into consideration?
Yeah. So NPAN did some research. It was almost 10 years ago now. And we collected data from all over the country, and it was roughly to open up a small inspected facility of 5,000 square feet, you needed about 1,200 beef or beef equivalent a year to break even, right? That's not to make a profit, just bare bones.
That is how many a day, roughly?
That's 6 to 8 a day, right? 50 weeks a year. But now, according to our understanding of construction costs and labor costs, I think it's closer to 1,800 is your break-even point. And, if you want to talk about profitability, a minimum of 2,000 head a year. So that's closer to, what is that, 12 to 15 a day or something? I don't have a calculator in front of me. But anyway, about 1,800 to 2,000 head a year, bare bones to build an inspected plant. And then the cost to build a 5,000 square foot plant is roughly $400 to $450 a square foot now, depending on where you live in the country. So you're looking at a minimum of $2.25 million to $3 million. And that doesn't include equipment, So probably closer to, I don't know, you're the equipment guy, 3 or 4 million bare bones.
Yeah, and it's good to know all that information because when you don't have an easy and very digestible way to communicate, okay, you want to do it, yeah, but this is upfront what what may cost you. And I think this is good information. I mean,
Yeah.
and thank you for all you do, because last episode that we had from 2020 to 2022, there's been a lot of new
change.
establishments.
Yeah.
A lot of change, a lot of funding, a lot of new facilities, new people. I mean, even like folks that I just said, cattle producers, like had no idea how to break down a carcass, how that you had to have a quality assurance in your team, had to have a hazard plan. So all those things that until you're not in the business and understand how the establishment is inspected, whether state inspected or USDA inspected or custom for a custom slaughter. Tell us about some of the most common, I would say maybe not questions, but some of the most common reasons for processors to fail. And by failing, I mean, I've been 6 months in, 12 months in, and not making money. What are some of the most common reasons for them to close a facility? Because I know there's been some companies that have to like pretty much sell all the equipment because I mean it didn't work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I have a lot of those processors come my way kind of on the down low and say, you know, I'm thinking about selling. How do I prepare my business to sell? Or, you know, I can't keep a competent plant manager on the staff, so I need to lease this facility to somebody else. Or there's also been, you know, nonprofits and government entities that have tried to build slaughter facilities, and it's not necessarily the best business model. And they come to me a few years later and say, we need to find an entrepreneur to take this over. So I receive a lot of those questions because they're looking for help, you know, on how to transition this business. Most of them want to still see it remain in operation, you know. They realize the value they provide their community, but they don't want to run it themselves anymore. Maybe they never were profitable, or they're just sick of working 80-hour weeks or whatever. So I have a good understanding of what those reasons are. And, you know, I think especially after the last couple of years with processors, operators working 80-hour weeks, I think a lot of them are just straight up burnt out. You know, just they didn't have that work-life balance and they can't take it anymore, and they see the trajectory and they don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, you know, like that moment where they can go back to having weekends and maybe go on vacation. They just can't take it anymore. So that's a common reason. It's just not a good balance of work life. Second is employee turnover and the inability to keep competent plant managers and QC staff, especially leadership positions. You know, they'll train people up because you can't really generally just find those people out on the streets, plant managers looking for jobs. So they often train people up and they get them to a competent level. And then those people leave for either another plant position or just a non-meat processing position that pays better and has better benefits, you know. So labor, I think is another huge factor. And then I think a lot of plants get built based on an idea that there's going to be a consistent volume of animals year round. Oh, well, I live in a county where there's more cattle than people, you know, like Montana. And I'm like, well, that's great, but where are your eaters? You know, where are the people who buy that meat? And then aren't all the cattle finished at the end of the year? Who's going to bring you animals during the wintertime in the spring? And they're like, they don't often think about that. I encourage them to think about that before they invest $5 million. But if they've already built the plant, that the volume inconsistency is a huge problem for cash flow and to be able to keep their employees on staff. So they have to start to figure out other things to do. So I encourage them to look at, you know, value-added products or RTE products, or, you know, if they're a vertically integrated outfit, could their staff work on the farm for part of the year and then in the plant for part of the year? Could they take hunted game? Like, what else can they do to even out the volume? So I think those are probably like the three main issues. But I'm concerned that a lot of new entrants are coming into meat processing because of all of the federal and state dollars that are coming their way that may not be ready and prepared for it. And, I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but I am a little concerned in a couple years we're going to see a bunch of plants for sale and a bunch of equipment for sale by people who probably didn't have the right volumes to begin with to get into it.
Well, it's I think it's bottom line is not only the financing portion of it. There's a lot that goes into it, and we're here to help. So that's an important part before you even considering getting a plan. Get all the information from people like you, people like us at Ultrasource that can help you from scratch, even in the startup plan. What do you want to do? And we have a great team of meat scientists who can help you out, and they're very supportive of all this. So I think it is a non-traditional time, right? You would see it was not normal 5 years ago seeing that many people interested in getting new plans and being involved in the meat industry. But I think it's good. It's a good time for the meat industry. Yeah. It's a good time for everyone. It's a good time for AMP. So
it's exciting. There's a lot of infusion of new energy. I think it's great that we're seeing younger entrants into the processing space. We need that. I work for Extension. I'm not selling anything. So my job is just to give people like the full suite of information. And so they know what they're getting into. I don't want to, I'm not going to sugarcoat how hard this experience is. And when people come to me and say, I'd like my plant up and running in 12 months, I'm like, well, just double or triple that number. And virtually everyone I've worked with are like, you were right about that. It did take 2 or 3 years to get up and running. And I'm like, well, good. I'm glad you knew.
But I genuinely believe that it's best to say the truth up front than not saying, just masking like, okay, this now is it's not hard. Anyone can do it. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people doing that. So just you got to think twice.
Yeah.
Even more. So thank you, Rebecca, for your time. I'm glad that we got to sit down here in Des Moines, where NMPAN was created. Iowa, not Des Moines. Iowa, Ames, right? Yeah. Eventually, it's like an hour away. Ames, Iowa. Thank you for everyone. Thank you all the audience. We'll keep working to get all this content and all this knowledge. We talked with Dr. Hauser, which actually is a faculty at Iowa State. The importance of getting all the things that sometimes is over our heads, as far as science and meat science. How can we have to translate it into layman's terms? Yeah. So I think that's part of our job. And thank you again for joining us today. And hopefully we get to visit to the west side sometime.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you guys. We'll see you soon.